Hello, people. I have a question for you. What do you think is the number one challenge customers are facing when they go on a journey to adopt AI? Let me give you a hint. It's not a change management, it's not lack of use cases, and it's not even poor ROI. Turns out it is security. Yes, security is the number one challenge. When I talk to CIOs and CISOs and ask them why AI is different, and these CIOs and these CISOs have successfully taken their organizations to public cloud. They embrace mobility, they embrace remote work. But when it comes to AI, they're just very nervous and they're very anxious. And their response is one word: non-determinism. AI is such a technology where the response happens to be non-deterministic. And what that means is when you ask one question to AI, you might get one response. You ask the same question again, you might not get the same answer, even though the answer that you might get could be the correct one. So that makes it very difficult for someone to structure their security program or security testing to figure out how AI actually works. And with the rise of agentic AI, it makes it even more complicated. As we start looking at agentic AI, agents are going to be our teammates. You can reason with them. They will actually help us in getting things done. However, they might assume our identity. They might get their own identity. And they might be semi-autonomous or fully autonomous. And that makes people even more nervous. So how do we think about security? Now, the good news is you can break it down. You can break non-determinism down into smaller chunks, because AI, end of the day, happens to be a problem which is made up of a bigger problem made up of smaller problems. When you look at the base models, and these are the large language models, they are trained on large data sets. And we have seen new attack vectors on large language models, such as adversaries can trick a model into revealing something that it should not reveal. An attacker can play a sort of a clever prompt and get the training data out of the model that the model is not supposed to reveal. Or an attacker or an adversary could essentially poison the model. But there are tests for all of those things. You can actually defend against all these kinds of new attack vectors that we are seeing. Now remember, adversaries have access to AI too. You are trying to use AI, they are trying to use AI as well. Going beyond models, it turns out it's a traditional data security problem. How do you secure multiple data sets? How do you make sure people have the right access to the right data? So when you are querying information, you are not getting responses that you should not be getting. You should not have access to this data at all, period, with or without AI. So let me take an example and walk you through what this means. Let's take an example of Microsoft security portfolio. Now, Microsoft has had security portfolio for a while. Security is nothing new to Microsoft. And just like any other environment, no one really starts from AI from scratch. All organizations have basic defense in place. So it's important to understand that you have to go beyond traditional defense, but you still require traditional defense. So what Microsoft has done is they have taken their existing portfolio and they are making sure that existing portfolio works against AI workload as well. And they can secure all kinds of AI workload, AI use cases in making sure that CIOs and CISOs feel comfortable rolling it out, to the business for which this is immensely useful. So, for example, from an end user perspective, Microsoft has a product called Purview, and Microsoft Purview, think of this thing as a data security product, where if you want to make sure that the end user gets only access to certain kinds of data, you want to mask PII or personally identifiable information, you can do that too, called DLP. There are other kinds of data security mechanism that you can actually apply. There's insider risk, which is sort of a huge thing where you want to make sure that this attack is not coming from within the organization. So this Microsoft Purview handles a lot of data use cases, and Microsoft Purview also ensures that model is trained on right kind of data. So it's data security, but it is extended for AI. Now, the second thing, which is more important, not more important, but second thing, which is equally important, is identities. Identity-driven attacks have exceeded malware-driven attacks. So we know that adversaries, one of the most popular attacks, that they would try to break in, they would try to assume someone's identity, and then they would launch attacks. So that's one thing. So you really have to protect, to defend these identities and make sure you secure them. At the same time, interesting enough, we have large language models and we have different kinds of AI systems. They get their own identities too. And remember, we talked about agents? Well, agents would have their own identities as well. And these are called NIH or NHI or non-human identities. So non-human identities are going to be as important, if not more important actually, than human identities. Because we want to make sure that the non-human identities, the systems and agents and whatnot that are actually helping us getting things done, have the right kind of access. They are not accessing data that they should not access. They are looking at the traffic that is coming to a specific identity, goes to a specific end user. And from an identity perspective, everything is central when it comes to an identity. Microsoft has Microsoft Entra, which is think of this thing as an identity management product, has been there for a long time. And with Entra ID and a number of other features, Microsoft has been extending that product to make sure that they are supporting the newer identity requires as we would need to protect AI workload. And the last thing comes to end users. And end users are the most important thing, because you know what? We are the weakest links. Human beings are the weakest links. So we are sitting there on our devices, on our laptops, on our mobile devices, and we are accessing all kinds of applications. We are accessing SaaS applications, we are accessing copilots, we are accessing other local applications that are AI enabled. And these endpoints need to be secured from an AI perspective, because they are the most vulnerable endpoints, because end user has access to systems through an endpoint. So Microsoft Defender, think of this thing as what started out as an antivirus kind of thing, that hey, the attack or the critical vulnerability that you can have in your system would be a virus. I think we have made so much progress. We are not talking about viruses anymore. What we are really talking about is the attacks that could be the adversaries that could be trying to play the role of an end user, or adversaries that might use end user's identity to get access to certain things. The devices can be hijacked. A number of other things that can actually happen, because now end user has access to far more information than they ever did, especially when it comes to structured data and unstructured data. A lot of unstructured data or semi-structured data, such as documents and whatnot, we haven't really made a good use of that. But now with AI, end users are going to have access to a lot more information than they ever did, which is a great thing. But you want to make sure that that workload, that access pattern, and that endpoint is protected. So the way to think about this is AI is a new endpoint. If you think of AI as an endpoint, then it totally makes sense. So to summarize, you think about AI as an endpoint, which is the end user, and you think about identities, making sure that you are protecting, you're defending identities. And the last thing, you are making sure the data and the model, the data that is used to train models and models themselves are protected. That's the way to protecting, that's a way to think about your overall AI security. Thanks for watching the video. Check out Microsoft's security portfolio, as well as check out my big idea report on AI security on Constellation Research website, constellationr.com. Thank you so much.